Go to this Bachikoto. I want to see how you look with your.
So the internet really woke up emotional today because somehow, someway, Chrisean Rock just dropped a major update about her son. And now everybody is reacting like this is the moment that changes Eve. Ribbing, we're not talking about a small post, we're talking about a specialist update that instantly flipped timelines from chaos to concern, from jokes to serious debates in seconds. Because the second the words "he will walk soon" started circulating, the internet didn't just react. It exploded with opinions, emotions, and a whole lot of confusion. But now here's the thing, this isn't just regular celebrity drama anymore. This is personal. This is sensitive. And somehow it still turned into a viral moment overnight. One side of the internet is celebrating, saying this is positive news, progress, and something worth reporting no matter what. The other side is questioning everything, asking what kind of specialist? What does this really mean, and why is this being shared publicly like this? And just like that, a simple update turned into a full-blown debate with emotions running high on every side. But let's not pretend this situation exists in a vacuum. Because Chrisean's life has always been under a microscope. Every move she makes gets analyzed, every word gets broken down, and every situation somehow becomes content for the timeline. So when something this serious gets shared, the reactions aren't calm, they're loud, messy, and all over the place. Because the internet doesn't do quiet discussions. It does chaos with opinions attached, and the wildest part, nobody can agree on how to react. Some fans are showing support, sending prayers, and rooting for progress like it's a victory moment. Others are skeptical, wondering if this is another situation being misunderstood, misrepresented, or exaggerated for attention. And once that split happens, the timeline turns into a battlefield of emotions instead of a conversation. But here's where it gets even more intense, because now people are digging deeper. They're revisiting past clips, past statements, and trying to piece together what this update actually means in the bigger picture. And the more they dig, the more complicated the story becomes. Because nothing is ever simple when the internet gets involved. And if even half of what people are speculating is true, then this situation is about to get a lot bigger than anyone expected. Because the moment that specialist update hit the timeline, everything changed. And trust me, what happened next, that's where this turns from emotional into full-blown internet chaos. It all started like a regular day on the timeline. Nothing too wild, nothing too serious, just the usual mix of posts, reactions, and noise people scroll past without thinking twice. Then suddenly, Chrisean Rock drops an update about her son, and within seconds, the entire vibe of the internet shifts from casual scrolling to full attention mode. Because the moment she mentioned a specialist and hinted at progress, people didn't just listen. They locked in like something important had just happened. And that's when the situation started building momentum faster than anyone expected. At first, the reaction felt supportive, almost calm compared to what usually happens online. Fans were sending encouragement, posting messages of hope, and focusing on the positive side of the update. It looked like one of those rare moments where the internet actually comes together instead of tearing something apart. But that calm didn't last long, because once more people saw the update, the tone started changing. Questions began popping up almost immediately, not aggressive at first, just curious. People wanted to know what kind of specialist was involved, what the update actually meant, and how things were progressing behind the scenes. And while those questions seemed harmless, they opened the door to something much bigger. Because once curiosity spreads, it quickly turns into speculation. And speculation never stays quiet. Then came the second wave of reactions, and that's where things started getting complicated. Some users began analyzing the wording of the update, picking apart every sentence like it held hidden meaning. Others started comparing this moment to past statements, trying to connect dots that may or may not have been related. And just like that, A simple update turned into something people felt the need to figure out. Meanwhile, older clips started resurfacing because the internet never forgets anything. People pulled up previous moments, past conversations, and earlier updates trying to build a timeline of events. And once those clips started circulating, they added another layer of confusion to the situation. Because now it wasn't just about what was said today. It was about everything that had been said before. At the same time, Chrisean's delivery became a major talking point on its own. Some fans saw confidence in her tone, interpreting it as a sign that she truly believed in the progress being made. Others felt uncertainty, suggesting that the update might not be as clear as it sounded at first. And that difference in interpretation created a divide that kept growing with every new reaction. What made everything even more intense was how quickly emotions started mixing with opinions. Supporters continued to uplift her, focusing on positivity and encouraging patience. Critics, however, began questioning the clarity of the message, asking whether people were jumping to conclusions too quickly, and that contrast turned the conversation into something much bigger than the original update. Then came the moment where the situation really started gaining traction across platforms. The update wasn't just being discussed, it was being reposted, reshared, and reframed with different captions. Each repost carried a slightly different tone. And those tones started shaping how people understood the story. Because when information spreads like that, it doesn't stay the same, it evolves with every share. At this point, the conversation was no longer controlled by the original message. It had taken on a life of its own, moving faster and growing larger with every new reaction. People who hadn't even seen the original update were now forming opinions based on secondhand interpretations. And once that happens, the narrative becomes something entirely separate from the source. Then the debates began, and that's when things truly shifted into chaos territory. Some argued that this was a moment of hope that should be respected and supported. Others insisted that questions needed to be asked to fully understand what was actually being said. And neither side backed down because both believed they were approaching the situation the right way. What made it even more unpredictable was the lack of clear follow-up information. There was no detailed explanation, no breakdown of what the specialist update really involved. And without that clarity, people filled in the gaps with their own interpretations. Because when information is incomplete, the internet completes it on its own, whether it's accurate or not. As the discussion continued, more voices started joining in, each adding a new perspective. Influencers, commentators, and everyday users all contributed to the growing conversation. Some focused on empathy, others focused on skepticism, and a few tried to balance both sides. But no matter the angle, the story kept expanding, pulling more people into the debate. At the same time, the emotional weight of the situation became harder to ignore. This wasn't just another viral topic. It involved real-life circumstances that people couldn't fully separate from the drama, and that made every reaction feel more intense. Because it wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was a mix of genuine concern, curiosity, and the internet's tendency to overanalyze everything. Then came the point where everything felt like it was building towards something bigger. The reactions weren't slowing down, the questions weren't being answered, and the speculation kept growing. It felt like the situation was moving toward a turning point. Something that would either clarify everything or make it even more confusing. And everyone watching knew that the next development would be important. Because once a story reaches this level of attention, it doesn't just fade away quietly. It either resolves itself with clarity, or it escalates into something even more complicated. And based on how fast this situation was growing, it was clear that things weren't going to settle down anytime soon. Because what comes next doesn't just continue the story, it changes the entire direction. And trust me, when that next phase hits, it doesn't stay emotional, it turns into full internet chaos. Because once more voices get involved, and the narrative keeps expanding, there's no controlling it anymore. And what happened next? that's where everything goes from serious to completely out of control. And just like that, the situation didn't just grow, it exploded into something way bigger than anyone expected. Because the timeline went from emotional reactions to full-blown chaos in seconds, Chrisean Rock was trending everywhere, not just for the update, but for the reactions that followed it, which somehow became louder than the message itself. Clips were reposted with dramatic captions. Edits were made to amplify certain moments, and suddenly the story looked 10 times bigger than it originally was. And once the internet starts remixing a situation like that, the original context starts slipping away. Memes hit fast, because even serious topics don't escape internet humor for long. Some people tried to turn the update into exaggerated reactions, comparing it to dramatic TV reveals and emotional story arcs. Others immediately pushed back, calling the jokes insensitive and demanding people treat the situation with respect. And just like that, the timeline split again, this time between humor and seriousness fighting for control. Then came the analysis era, where everybody suddenly became an expert overnight. Threads started breaking down what the update must mean, with users confidently explaining possibilities that weren't confirmed at all. People began discussing specialists, timelines, and outcomes like they had insider knowledge, even though they were guessing. And the more those explanations spread, the more they started sounding like facts to people who hadn't seen the original update. At the same time, supporters doubled down with a completely different energy that felt more grounded. They flooded the comments with encouragement, reminding everyone that progress should be acknowledged no matter how small. For them, the update represented hope, resilience, and something positive to hold onto. And that positivity created a powerful contrast to the growing skepticism across the timeline. But the skepticism didn't fade, it actually got stronger with every passing moment. Some users questioned the wording of the update, wondering if it was being interpreted too literally. Others raised concerns about how personal information was being shared publicly and how it might be misunderstood, and those questions added another layer of complexity to an already confusing situation. Meanwhile, every move Chrisean made after the update was being watched like it was part of a bigger story. If she posted again, people analyzed it for hidden meaning. If she stayed quiet, people read into the silence. There was no neutral reaction anymore. Everything became part of the narrative, whether it was intended or not, and that level of attention made the situation feel heavier with every passing hour. Then the comparisons started getting wild, because the internet never stays subtle for long. Some people said this felt like a reality TV arc unfolding in real time, with emotions driving every reaction. Others compared it to a Marvel storyline, where each detail connects to something bigger that hasn't been revealed yet, and a few even joked that this was Zeus-level chaos, where nothing stays private and everything turns into drama. But beneath all the exaggeration, there was a real emotional core that people couldn't ignore. This wasn't just another viral topic. It involved something deeply personal that had been pulled into public discussion, and that made the reactions more intense. Because people weren't just reacting for entertainment anymore, they were reacting based on how they felt about the situation itself. Then outside voices started amplifying everything even further, taking the conversation to another level. Influencers, bloggers, and commentary pages jumped in, each adding their own interpretation to the situation. Some highlighted the hopeful angle, focusing on progress and positivity. Others leaned into the confusion, questioning details and pushing the narrative into more controversial territory. At this point, the story had completely outgrown its original update and turned into a full conversation about public life. People debated whether moments like this should even be shared online or kept private. Some argued that transparency is important, while others believed certain things should stay off social media entirely, and that debate added a completely new dimension to the situation. Then came the peak, the moment where everything felt like it might either settle or explode completely. Supporters were louder than ever, defending the update and pushing back against negativity. Critics were just as vocal, insisting that clarity was needed before people accepted anything at face value. And in the middle of it all, the original message started getting lost in the noise, because the more people talked about it, the less clear it actually became. What started as a simple update turned into multiple interpretations, each shaped by the person sharing it. And once that happens, the truth becomes harder to identify. Buried under layers of opinions, that's when a story stops being about facts and starts becoming about perception. And just when it felt like things couldn't get any more overwhelming, something shifted again. The reactions didn't stop, but the tone started changing, moving from loud chaos to quieter reflection. People began stepping back, thinking about what they had just witnessed instead of reacting instantly. And that shift created a different kind of tension that felt deeper than before. Because once the noise fades, the real impact starts to show. And just like that, the storm didn't disappear. It transformed into something quieter, but far more lasting than the chaos that came before. The memes flowed down, the debates softened, and suddenly the situation felt less like viral drama and more like something people were actually thinking about. Because when a moment moves from noise to reflection, it leaves a different kind of impact. And this situation did exactly that, lingering in people's minds long after the initial reaction. The first thing that became clearer was how quickly emotions had taken over the entire conversation. What started as a single update turned into a full emotional spectrum, from hope and support to doubt and criticism. And that range of reactions showed just how complex the situation really was beneath the surface. Because it wasn't just about what was said, it was about how people chose to interpret it. At the same time, Chrisean Rock remained at the center of it all, carrying both support and scrutiny at the same time. Some saw her as a mother sharing progress and trying to stay positive through a difficult situation. Others viewed her more critically, questioning how the update was presented and how it was being received. And that dual perception created a tension that never fully went away. What made the aftermath even more complicated was the lack of a clear conclusion. There was no final explanation, no detailed breakdown, no moment where everything was clarified. Instead, there was uncertainty, like a story that paused instead of ending completely. And that uncertainty kept the conversation alive. Even as the intensity started to fade. As time passed, the situation didn't disappear. It settled into the background like something unfinished. People moved on to other topics, but the memory of this moment stayed with them. Because situations like this don't just vanish, they become part of a larger narrative people revisit later. And when they do, their perspectives often shift based on what happens next. Then came the realization that changed how people looked at everything. It wasn't just about the update anymore. It was about how quickly it turned into a massive discussion. Within hours, something personal became public, analyzed, and debated across multiple platforms. And that speed made people question how the internet handles sensitive situations. At the same time, the difference between information and interpretation became more obvious. The original message was simple, but the reactions made it complex, adding layers that weren't there before. And once those layers exist, they shape how the story is remembered moving forward. Because perception doesn't just reflect reality, it reshapes it. Meanwhile, the emotional impact continued in quieter ways that didn't show up in trending topics. Supporters held onto hope, focusing on progress and the possibility of improvement. Skeptics remained cautious, waiting for more clarity before fully accepting the update. And those perspectives coexisted without fully canceling each other out. But here's the final twist that changes everything about this story. The biggest moment wasn't the update itself. It was how the internet reacted to it. Because in a matter of hours, one message became a global conversation filled with assumptions and emotions. And that transformation revealed just how powerful and unpredictable online reactions really are. Now the situation exists in that space between clarity and confusion, where nobody has all the answers. Some believe it represents progress, others think it needs more context before being understood. But regardless of perspective, the impact of the moment is undeniable. Because it changed how people view both the situation and the way information spreads online. And just when it feels like everything has settled, there's always the possibility of another update. One post, one statement, one new detail could bring the entire conversation back instantly. And if that happens, the reactions will likely be even bigger than before. Because once a story reaches this level, it never truly disappears. So the real question isn't whether this situation is over. It's whether it's just waiting for its next chapter, because sometimes the biggest moments don't happen during the chaos. They happen after everything goes quiet, and if this story has proven anything, it's that silence doesn't mean the end. It usually means something unexpected is still on the way. Now hold on. If you just watched all of that unfold and you're still scrolling like nothing happened, we need to talk, because this situation was not normal. This was emotion, confusion, and internet chaos all wrapped into one moment. Whether you see this as a positive update, a misunderstood situation, or something that needs more clarity, one thing is clear: it had the entire timeline locked in. And honestly, the wildest part isn't even the update itself. It's how fast everything turned into a full-blown conversation across the internet. So now I need your opinion, because this is where things really get interesting. Do you think this update is a genuine sign of progress and hope? Or do you think the situation needs more explanation before people jump to conclusions? Was the internet right to react the way it did? Or did things spiral out of control like they always do? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over and everybody's got a different take. And don't just sit there watching like it's free TV. Go ahead and smash that like button like it owes you money, because you already know this level of chaos deserves a reaction. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns, more viral moments, and more stories that make you question everything you see online. Because over here, we don't just talk about the drama, we flip it, analyze it, and bring it back louder than it started. And trust me, if another update drops, you already know exactly where it's getting covered first. Because this isn't just commentary, this is storytelling at its most unpredictable. And until the next moment hits your timeline, you already know the name Fame Flows.